Hey guys, and welcome back for another video. So today we actually got some news as to some updates to World vs. World, and more specifically, World vs. World is getting its own mount. If we look at the article directly posted to Guild Wars 2's homepage, you can see that on February 26th, we'll be able to tame something called a Warclaw, also saying that it's the only mount that can carry you into battle in the Mist War, or World vs. World, where its skills truly shine. And right off the bat, you can tell that this mount's going to be a little bit different than the ones that we've already unlocked. It's going to have some sort of combat abilities or World vs. World utility abilities, and actually, thanks to an article, we get a little bit more clarification on that. It seems that this mount will have 3 abilities. Firstly, it'll have an ability called Battle Maw, and this allows you to jump into battle and deal some damage. This is pretty similar to a lot of the disengage skills on some of the other mounts that we already have, but if you look at the second ability called Chain Pull, it's looking like you'll be able to chain some of the doors for forts in World vs. World and help rip those down. The third and final ability called Evade is not only a dodge or an evade, but also a speed boost, and since you'll have that evade the entire time you're speed boosted, it's likely that you'll be able to use this to move to new objectives in World vs. World, even if there's a big zerg of people in your way. Now, since this is a World vs. World specific mount, you will need to play that game mode in order to unlock this new mount, but you will be able to take it with you anywhere outside of World vs. World once you've earned it. Now, while that second ability, allowing you to tear down fort walls, isn't going to be very helpful in the open world, I am pretty interested to test this against some of the existing mounts with maybe the disengage damage, as well as how fast that speed boost actually is. Now, I myself am a pretty simple guy. I hear new mount and I get excited regardless of how it's added or the acquisition method, but I am pretty curious to see how this mount will be implemented, because every other mount that we've had in this game has been done so through the mastery system. Seeing as this is a World vs. World specific mount, it's likely that it'll be tied to your rank or maybe some of the currencies from World vs. World, but even still, then I wonder how you're going to go about unlocking each one of those abilities unless for some reason this time around the mount is a one-time purchase with all of its abilities unlocked. And again, since this will be unlocked in World vs. World, I imagine this new mount won't benefit from any of the shared abilities from any of your other mounts. As an example, the Springer actually shares out reduced fall damage, and I would be interested to see if that would still carry to this new mount. Additionally, I am really curious as to what kind of creature this new mount is. It looks like a char, right? Like, it just looks like a char that we get to ride. It's kind of weird. Now, right alongside the addition of this new mount, there will also be a double XP week. So from February 26th to March 5th, you can get double XP when in World vs. World, and I'm not quite sure if this is just further incentive to play that game mode, or if this is actually to try and help us unlock that mount right when it releases. Now that's it for my speculation, as well as just informing you guys of this update, but there is another side to this post, and that's the players. A lot of players are less than excited about this change, especially people who actually play World vs. World, because, as you might have guessed, they probably wanted another update rather than a new mount for World vs. World, and that would be the Alliance change. If you're unfamiliar, they're actually changing the way by which World vs. World servers, or what will be called worlds, will be structured, and since World vs. World for the most part is entirely up to the players as to how they want to play that game mode, they're allowing you to form your server teams along the same lines. Now, changing that obviously is going to have a few hiccups, especially in a 6-year-old game that's had the same World vs. World more or less since launch. And so to see this mount come into the game just feels like maybe development time that should have just been spent on alliances. But I'd actually argue that this is probably one of the most game-changing updates outside of new elite specializations that's come into World vs. World in a while. Or at least it could be. I'll have to see what those abilities are actually like in practice, but it does seem like a squad with these mounts equipped could actually splinter off of a huge zerg and go off and do something completely separate, and do it in a time that's a little bit more practical than trying to run, say, halfway across the map. Or at least that's my hope, as someone who's always been interested in the game mode but doesn't much enjoy slamming into big groups of people over and over again. I also personally feel like World vs. World players should champion basically any update that comes into World vs. World that could potentially bring in more players, especially when you consider that this change is a mount. You know that mounts come with mount skins, and now World vs. World will have one of its first new types of monetization, at least on the gem store, and therefore may see more updates in the future as a result. Now, all of this is just some ideals, I guess, coming from a guy who barely plays the game mode, so take that with a grain of salt. I just know from experience that the Guild Wars 2 community, while very friendly, tends to over-exaggerate certain things that come into the game. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much it for the coverage of this new feature, as well as some of the community backlash, if you even want to call it that, as far as this new update is concerned. I'd love to know what you guys think about these changes, especially if you're someone who regularly plays World vs. World. And if not, do you think you'll play World vs. World just to unlock the mount? Do you think that this will somehow still be tied to the mastery system, or do you think it'll be a single purchase from a World vs. World vendor? And most importantly, guys, what creature is that? I really want to know. If there's some sort of lore that I've missed, please do let me know that the Char actually rode other Char into battle, or whatever that is. But anyway, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this informative, and I'll see you in the next one.